right, I would like to now introduce our speaker for today. And after I read this, I'll go and call it up on the larger view for the chapel. This is Jeff McIntyre joining us today, and he joined the chapel in April of 2018. He's an active member and a supporter of our chapel, and we actually have one of his lectures in the book that we published of some of the messages. He's retired military. He's a former IT director of the Bionetics Corporation and a former business owner and a substance abuse counselor. He's currently employed at the Master Center for Addiction Medicine, working primarily with people who are addicted to heroin and other opioids. He's married to Pam McIntyre, who is also a chapel member, and you see her frequently in messages and on the morning service and the morning classes. She's a retired English teacher, and they have 2 adult children, Russell, who's a business owner for Deloitte, and Emma, a solutions engineer for Oracle. So this is the key thing. Jeff perceives his life purpose to be inspiring and raising the expansion of human consciousness, and he does a fabulous job with that, and the elimination of unnecessary human suffering. He believes that freedom is the best and surest path for human advancement, and says freedom is a manifestation of the highest levels of consciousness, and dependency is a manifestation of the lowest levels of consciousness. So I now turn it over to Jeff McIntyre.
Thank you very much. And it's great to see everybody here. And I'm going to start with a little review. I'm going to be talking about the conscience. And I want to, if I'm going to be talking about, because we're going to be talking about conforming to the highest urges of our conscience, I wanted to give it a little bit of context by reviewing some of the things that I've taught in my last few sessions, or whatever you want to call it, lessons. First of all is choice. And fundamentally, I did a teaching a couple of years ago, I think it is now, about choose love. And we're going to be talking about the conscience role in that choice. Also, I've talked about universal wisdom. And what I mean by universal wisdom is the same wisdom that I have within me, everyone has within them. Okay. It is universal. We can draw from it anytime we want, and we can express it anytime we want. However, a lot of times, we're not aware of it, or we're not aware enough to do that expression. Taking something from Bill's teaching last week, because he talked about, in order to have balance, you need to have opposites. And I think one of the mistakes we make sometimes when we're especially when we have kind of bursts of consciousness where we feel real good, it's kind of like the born again Christian thing where you're all happy and everything. We can kind of get into a mindset where if in order to be spiritually conscious, we always have to be up and positive and joyful and all this stuff. And the reality is that my goal in life is to be fully human and fully spiritual, and to have all the passions of human existence, to fully express all the passions of human existence. So once again, that balance, the balance of the opposites. And lastly, love. And love is the aspect of the mind that seeks unity. It seeks unity in personal relationships. It seeks unity in groups, in fellowships, in teams, etc. And I sort of just wanted to sort of plant those seeds before I start talking about conscience, because the way I'm going to talk about conscience, and most people think of conscience as a sense of right and wrong, and it is that. The real, when I feel guilty because I've done something that I judge to be wrong. And that is an action of the conscience. But the conscience is much more than that. And the way I'm going to talk about it today is very personal. Okay. And that each individual person has a conscience. And like I said, it's a sense of right and wrong, but it's also a sense of direction. It is a connection to the most expansive level of consciousness, God. In other words, it is our direct connection to God. And it is capable of giving us moment to moment to moment absolutely perfect guidance for ourselves. And this is where it gets very personal. Okay. You know, I know what's right for me right now because I'm fully aware of my conscience right now. Okay. But that's the guidance that our conscience gives us. It is personal. It is for me. It does not apply to everybody I know. It doesn't apply to my children or my parents or my wife. Um, I get guidance for myself for right now. Because I get guidance today that points me in a particular direction does not mean that's the direction for the rest of my life. Creation and evolution is continuous. And the conscience, if once we're aware of it, the conscience will direct us into that growth or expansion. This actually is a way, people often ask, how do I know the will of God? I talk about conforming to the will of God. Years and years ago, like 40 some years ago, I heard somebody say, if I line my will with God's will, the entire universe is working with me. And I sort of said, yeah, I want that, And so the question is now, how do I know what the will of God is? Well, this is the way you know. Okay. The conscience, once we become quiet enough to be aware of it, the conscience will give us perfect guidance in our lives. And not only what is right and wrong, but also the things we need to create, the people we need to meet, the connections we need to create, etc. Like I said, conscience can direct our efforts. It generally will direct our efforts towards unity, okay? Because spirit is unity, love is unity. However, unity on the human level, because one of the mistakes we human beings have made over and over again is we think that unity means compliance or compliance with the state or with the church or with other people, with society, with social norms. We don't need to follow another person if we can follow God directly. Okay, it doesn't mean we won't in particular situations. The physical world is designed in hierarchies. Okay, and I haven't seen any exceptions to that. But unity in the physical realm happens when free people come together in a common purpose. Now, that unity is that type of unity in the unity in the physical realm is not permanent. Okay, those kind of things come and they go, just like the rest of us and the rest of everything. Okay. So I'm kind of moving through this pretty quickly, so I apologize for that, but I have a lot of things that I want to say. So basically the conscience, okay, and this is kind of going back to the right and wrong thing. So we feel guilty if we've done something we judge to be wrong. We also feel great if we've done something we feel right is right. So this is kind of the most basic morality. Okay. It is personal morality. It is now we live in a culture that has a moral structure, and we live in a society that has all kinds of social mores and taboos and etc. And those can be very, very complex sometimes. But the conscience is almost always really, really simple. And like I said, it's a really basic morality. If I'm complying with the conscience, I feel right in tune. Okay, it's kind of like that feeling of the whole universe is working with us. If I fight my conscience, which I often do, and most of us do, um, and I'm going to get into some of the reasons for that here in a minute. But if I fight my conscience, I feel like I'm kind of swimming upstream. Okay. And it might be just a really vague feeling and really hard to put our fingers on. Um, the you know conscience may very well be guiding us to change groups or change jobs or change locations or change our attitudes even. And we're resistant to that. And life will become increasingly uncomfortable until I identify where that's coming from, for one thing. And to be fully conscious of our conscience, uh we kind of need to get quiet. And that's done usually through prayer and meditation and those kind of things. Also through honesty. I say this a lot because I think it's really important. The peace of mind that we experience is largely due to honesty. All those inner conversations, inner conflicts, uh, they disappear when we become honest. There's a great line in the Course in Miracles that says, the peace of mind experienced by the teachers of God is largely due to their perfect honesty, where no thought, word, or action contradicts another. So peace of mind is often done, often the result of honesty. But part of honesty is conforming to my true nature. Okay. And if I'm conformed to my true nature, that means I give my conscience that sense of guidance from that connection with God priority in my life. All right. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about actually those things about conscience. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that divert us from conscience. Okay. And I'll start by saying, in our society, and the truth is, in almost every society around the world that I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them, we recognize and celebrate achievement. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, these people that have built extraordinary companies and have billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars now. That's kind of what we celebrate in our society. Now, conscience may lead us away from this kind of achievement. Right? It also may create great material abundance. To a large degree, we have a choice in that. Okay, there are things that are important for us to do. We all kind of have. I don't want to say a mission in life because it's really not that rigid, but and it's easy to tell kind of what our purpose in life is because if we look at our talents, our God-given talents, as they say, and the things that we love to do, those actually define the purpose, our purpose in life. If we go to express our talents fully and express ourselves fully the way creation intended, and that's part of what I'm teaching here too, is that full self-expression is part of conforming to our conscience, because our conscience wants us to, because it is a direct connection to our creator. It literally wants us to be fully self-expressed and fully utilizing all the talents and all that God has presented us with in this life, and so we can be a full contribution to not just to ourselves and people close to us, but to society in general. Okay, so from what I've said so far, you may have discerned that we have this wonderful guidance system connected directly to God. Okay, Paul called this the mind of Christ in the Bible. We have this connection right to the mind of God, and the kingdom is within. So if we become conscious of that kingdom and live from that, we'll be expressing incredible things. So if we have all this and it's available to us all the time, how come a lot of times we choose not to do it, not to follow it? Um, why don't we follow it always in all ways? And so I was thinking about this, and there's a whole slew of reasons, and I'm not going to try to cover them all. For matter of fact, I'd be talking till the middle of next week if I tried to. But I'm going to touch on some common ones, I guess. Okay. And the first one is our comfort zone. Okay? So most of us have habits that make us very comfortable. We have comfortable places to live. We can sort of sit there and veg out and be comfortable and not have to do or think about much. And there's and that's all we want to do a lot of the time. To get up and change anything, change period, is comfort. Is uncomfortable. Um, the problem with this is that all growth happens outside our comfort zone. So um, so simply doing things, and comfort zone isn't just our house and staying isolated. A comfort zone can be the way that we do things, the beliefs that we have. Matter of fact, a belief is just something we think over and over again, or we hear over and over again so many times that it seems like the truth. Um, that's what a belief is. And we can be very comfortable in our beliefs. And it's very hard to, even if I recognize that I want to change my beliefs, actually changing them is still difficult. We still get that cognitive dissonance. Um, so that's one. So just staying comfortable in my attitudes, my physical surroundings, my friends, et cetera, the groups that I belong to, staying in my comfort zone is a barrier to following my conscience, because my conscience often leads me astray from the things that I want, or things that I am comfortable with, and also the things that society may condone. Okay, so next I'm going from a comfort zone. I'm gonna call this next one the rational zone. Okay, in other words, the guidance that I'm getting doesn't make sense from a logical point of view. And I'm going to use a story that I've used before when in teaching. I was in a club in Norfolk, and I left there, and this is probably 40 years ago, or close to like 30 some years ago. Anyway, so I left this club after 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and heading home. I used to live in Green Run in Virginia Beach, so I was going down the big highway there, and I had to take a right to go to Green Run, and I just felt this almost like a tug, on my heartstrings, you might say, a tug, an impulse to not go right, to go left. And I actually did. I actually went the other way. Okay. And I was thinking to myself, this is friggin' crazy, you know? So when I get up to Virginia Beach Boulevard, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back. But my impulse was to turn left, not to make a U-turn. So I turned left. And to make a long story short, this adventure, I got to the light where there's a church called the Open Door Chapel, which I used to go to an AA meeting at that chapel. And I got to the light and I said, well, if I look in and there's a light on in the room, I'll go in. But there was no light in the room, but I pulled in anyway. And sitting on the curb in front of the room was two guys. Okay. And those two guys became very important in my early recovery. For a matter of fact, one of them was the best man at our wedding, Pam and I's wedding. But they became, and really not for a long time, but for a couple of years, they became very important to my recovery, and I was important to their recovery. But while that was happening, while those impulses were happening, the whole time my mind was rebelling because it was irrational, and there was no reason that I could come up with for making these turns leading me to some place where I knew nobody was going to be. Okay. Except there was somebody there. And I have lots of stories like that. I'm not going to tell them all. It's the old I don't believe in miracles, I depend on them kind of thing. Um, but anyway, so that I call that the rational zone, is that sometimes we will get impulses. People that know me have heard 1,000 times, go to what you're drawn to. I really believe in that. Even if it makes no sense, go to it and let it play out. And sometimes, even if it's just a primrose path, and for people that aren't old like me, a primrose path is in some botanical gardens, they'll just have a path that doesn't really lead anywhere. It's called a primrose path. So some of these paths seem to not to lead anywhere, but the process of learning we go through while we're on them is important, even if it doesn't lead somewhere uh, we think it should, or society might think it's important. So the rational zone. So if it doesn't make sense, and for us logical people, um, and I do have a very logical mind actually, and that can be a detriment to following my conscience. The next I'm going to say is identity. Okay. Um, Identity is a story we make up about ourselves, and then we attach ourselves to it. We attach our ego to it. And there are all kinds of identities. I guess the one that's getting a lot of play in the media lately is gender identities. But the reality is someone like me has had hundreds of identities in my life. I'm a sailor, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm an engineer, I'm on and on and on and on. Substance abuse counselor, whatever. Okay. I can build identities around each one of those. Um, but there are certain behaviors connected to my identities. Okay. And part of my story that I make up can be, well, an engineer doesn't do this kind of thing. Okay. Um, you know, etc. Creating a story and identity and attaching ourselves to us will limit things that we will do. Okay. All right, our surroundings, and Trish actually just touched on this a minute ago, is that we can pick up, for one thing, I pick up something I've observed about myself over the years, is I pick up the attitudes and outlooks of people around me. Okay. Um, I react to situations that I'm in. There's some surroundings that I really, really like, and there's some surroundings that I don't like. The I was just thinking about the work that I do now. The clients that I have now, all of my clients now all have serious mental illness of one kind or another. And sometimes when I walk into their houses, uh, the chaos sort of just hits you right in the face, and it's like, I don't want to be here, but that's where my work is. And I grow, the truth is that once I set that purpose or set that intention, and I am truly drawn to this kind of work, by the way. Speaking of following our conscience, I really feel well expressed and well used, and a good contribution in the work that I'm doing right now. So I have to, let me see how to put this. Our surroundings can be a barrier to the expression of the guidance that we're getting. And that's something I need to learn to put aside. Okay. Okay, the next one. It doesn't always feel good. Okay. Sometimes it contradicts our beliefs. Okay. And once again, beliefs are things that we hear, over and over and over again till they seem true to us. Okay. In other words, they're conditioning. That's actually what it is. Okay. And if we were brought up in a certain religious, culture, there's beliefs we've heard over and over and over again until they seem true. Okay. Our conscience may want us to go in a totally different direction. Okay. There's what's called an agony of conscience. And this is really true. It's a conflict. And I used to think it's because I had two choices that were morally equal and I couldn't make up my mind. That's what I thought an agony of conscience is. But when I examined it more closely, it was actually a conflict between what my conscience was guiding me to do, or what my conscience wanted to show me was true, and my current opinion. So, so anyway, I'll just leave that with that. Okay. Next one, we are getting to the end here. Next one is clutter. And by clutter, I don't mean clutter in our house or our cars or whatever. I mean that incessant clutter in our minds. Okay. There's an old Zen teaching story of this guy who he's a college professor, and he studies all the Zen texts and other Buddhist texts and all this stuff, and thinks he has a really good good understanding of it. And then he goes to see the Zen master, and the Zen master sets up tea for him and stuff, and they're sitting there talking, and he says, well, now I've learned all this stuff. Can you give me something that's just the essence of Zen? And he starts pouring his tea, and he keeps on pouring his tea until it overflows the cup. And the guy says, hey, you're overflowing your cup. And he says, well, you filled your mind with opinions and stories and learning. How am I going to teach you anything about Zen? You need to go and empty your cup. So we can actually be trapped in thought. Okay. And all the things, I say it all the time, my biggest barrier to learning is what I think I already know. So I will leave that where it is. And the last thing I'm going to touch on today, even though there's lots of others, is momentum. Okay. And this is that we continue doing and believing what we have practiced usually all of our lives. Okay. So this goes back to beliefs too, same kind of thing. It's kind of our conditioning, but it's also kind of, we get caught up in our job and in our kids and our, all the daily tasks that we have. And there's a momentum to that. And we just can't stop and take time to listen. Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of end with this part. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. I'm going to make that more personal. I'm going to say, be the change you want to see in your life. How do you become more aware of the guidance that you're giving? Practice, practice, practice. Thank you very much.